Welcome to Varta, the voice of Indic wisdom, a collaborative program between DCTV and Center for Indic Studies at UMass Dartmouth. I am Balram Singh, founding and ex-director of Center for Indic Studies at UMass Dartmouth, currently the president of Institute of Advanced Sciences in Dartmouth. I have a panel of luminaries today to talk about International Yoga Day, which has been adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. I have Professor Sukalyan Sen Gupta, who is sitting on the back, and he is the current director of Center for Indic Studies. And I have Swami Yogatmanand, head of the Providence Vedanta Society, sitting here in the middle. I have Carol Tabaras sitting to the extreme at the right in the front. She is the Transcendental Meditation Manager or Director of the South Coast. I have Dr. Yogesh Rathi, who is assistant professor at Harvard Medical School. He works in neuroimaging. Dr. Jerry Sullivan, who is associated with Center for Indic Studies for many years. And I have Karen Sabot of Sacred Stone Academy of Massage and Ayurveda in Tiverton, Rhode Island? Middletown, Rhode Island. Thank you all for being here. It's really a wonderful time, and then to have all of you, so many of you, to be able to join us today. I'm doing it a little bit ahead of time of the International Yoga Day, which is coming up on June 21st, so that we will have this program edited and broadcast by the time, hopefully. Are you aware of the International Yoga Day? Are you all, maybe give a brief introduction of your organization or your work, and just let me know whether you are familiar with the International Yoga Day and what it means to you.
I'm part of the organizing committee for the International Yoga Day in Boston. I represent the Hindu Swayamsevak Sangh, and we have more than 10 organizations who come together to celebrate this on June 21st at MIT Kresge Auditorium. And we hope to spread the message of yoga around to everybody in the community, to people who go to are regular practitioners of yoga and who are even not.
So you do this anyway, or is this something it's going to be more initiative for this?
Yes,
event?
this is the sort of the first International Yoga Day that's being celebrated in Boston.
And this will be your initiative, so
yes.
Spreading this message around is going to be because of this idea. Okay,
yes.
Thank you. Swamiji.
Yes, we also are very much involved in yoga. It is a comprehensive discipline that Vedanta societies have been adopting and preaching for over a century now. And this International Yoga Day is, I consider, a milestone. I became aware of it in last December. And since then I was thinking what measures we can take to observe this in an emphatic way. Emphatic in the sense that let more people be aware of these very important principles for their life building. And so at Vedanta Society of Providence, we are going to conduct a comprehensive yoga conference on June 19, 20 and 21st, where we will actually explore all the physical, psychological, spiritual aspects of yoga and its importance in every walk of life. Especially we would like to emphasize that how yoga can be a very useful thing in educational systems.
Oh, wonderful.
So that is the main idea, and we were really inspired by hearing that in many states, especially in California, they have now taken up this yoga as a part of their curriculum. And we feel that this model should be adopted by all other states as well.
All right.
So,
thank you. Carol?
I'm a certified teacher of the Transcendental Meditation Program, and my understanding of yoga, the word itself means union, unity. And with transcendental meditation, we have a yoga of the mind, where the individual mind is united with their higher self and also the cosmic mind, the universal, unbounded being, and just the universal consciousness. And when individuals experience this in a very effortless way through the Transcendental Meditation Program, they gain inner fulfillment, inner well-being, and also improvements in health, improvements in their dealings with life, their success in life, and also an effect on the environment of increased peace and harmony.
Were you aware of this International Yoga Day?
I was not. This is the first I've heard of it. And I am very glad that there is an International Yoga Day, because I think we need to celebrate this new view of life, where we're not just living on the surface, where we want to gain more of the inner self. Education today is all about gaining facts, gaining information, gaining training for a job. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who has founded this Transcendental Meditation, says that education should develop the full potential of the individual. And that is the state of self-realization, enlightenment. And that brings real fulfillment and the ability to really be successful and enjoy life to its fullest.
Thank you. Jerry, what do you think? You have been teaching yoga also, meditation, and for a long time.
Yes.
And you are a researcher in parapsychology.
Yes, through the Center for Indic Studies at UMass Dartmouth, I've had an opportunity to be seminar coordinator for a few years and to bring programs together, as well as more recently teaching a course in the science of Kriya Yoga. And I'm very excited about the prospects of an International Yoga Day for a number of reasons. I think, first of all, the International Yoga Day has the potential, at least, as Carol pointed out, of raising awareness, and also Swamiji pointed that out, raising awareness of something that's very present in American society. You see signs, you go down the street, yoga tonight at 7 o'clock. So we have this idea that yoga is everywhere, and everyone seems to think they know what it is. But my experience is that few really do, because yoga is a very deep topic, and it has many more dimensions than the Hatha Yoga, the asanas that are done at fitness centers, which is a big part of it, of course, but it's not the only part. So I believe that, first of all, the International Yoga Day has the ability, a potential of raising widespread awareness of the other aspects of yoga that might be helpful and useful in American society. So I stop there.
All right.
Yeah.
Karen.
Well, I own a school for massage and Ayurveda called SAMA, and SAMA is an acronym for Sacred Stone Academy of Massage and Ayurveda. And it is...
Tell a little bit about Ayurveda, because that's not the topic.
Yes, okay, so Ayurveda.
So people may not be familiar with Ayurveda.
True, so it's an ancient science of self-healing from India. It's about 5,000 years old or more. And it's a holistic science. It's actually a holistic medical system, a body, mind, spirit system. And the school that I own is based on yogic principles and philosophies and Ayurveda. So students come and they learn how to teach yoga, how to counsel in Ayurveda, and also how to massage. So we offer a massage license, and a lot of them are training in Vedic massage, Ayurvedic massage. And on June 21st, I'm really excited about this. I am going to run a class and open it to the public and see if we can bring more awareness to this whole International Yoga Day, not necessarily because it's about yoga, but because I really like the reason that this is happening is really about world peace and the ahimsa and the nonviolence yogic tradition of living a gentle, harmonious life and making choices on a daily basis that are based on kindness. So I want to talk about that and meditate on it with the group and then teach a class on yoga.
Thank you. Professor Sengupta, you are the torchbearer of academic work. Many of the Indian philosophies and practices and including yoga that is done at the Center for Indic Studies at the university. Obviously you know about yoga, International Yoga Day. What you think of this could help and promote this kind of ideas through the university and through the academia?
Dr. Singh, this initiative on yoga was actually started by you many years ago when you were the director for Center for Indic Studies, and we intend to continue that tradition. As Dr. Salfman mentioned, we have had yoga seminars and workshops and the course that you started, the Science of Kriya Yoga. On this specific occasion, I think it offers us meaning the Center for Indic Studies, a very good opportunity to emphasize that, as Jerry said, what we consider yoga to be today in the States is only a very small part of this whole gamut of disciplines, and more the personal elevation level which somehow gets diffused in this business world of yoga. So in association with the Vedanta Society of Providence, the Center for Indic Studies is also involved in this 3-day conference, June 19th through 21st. And we would like to highlight that yoga is also a very scientific tradition. In the Indic tradition, science was not divorced from spirituality or personal contemplative practices. So we intend to emphasize that and show the evolution of yoga through history, from our sacred texts to, texts of both kinds, what we call the Shrutis, the revealed texts, the Smritis, the ones which followed the Shrutis, and also our mythological texts called the Puranas. So from that tradition to its evolution today, we plan to cover that entire gamut.
So you mentioned the next good segue to discuss something. You said spirituality, there is an aspect of your spirituality which to many people in the audience, in American audience, Western audience, spirituality to them is related to religion. And while Swamiji, you mentioned that in California there is in the curriculum, but then we also know that there was a court case because the parents are very concerned. So I like maybe it's a good point to move into the direction of this controversy, spirituality versus religion versus yoga, personal enlightenment or upliftment of life, that you can live the fullest of your potential that Carol was talking about. What do you think, Swamiji, about this?
It's
yoga and religion.
That yoga, certainly when one looks at religion in a very broad sense, then these objections do not make much sense. That it is, if we look at religion only as a particular sectarian thing, then of course there would be conflicts about it. But when we look at religion as in a very broad sense, that it is something that would give meaning to our life, and then also it will lead us to the ultimate goal, that is something that I don't think anybody will have conflict about it. So religion not as a particularized religion. Yoga is not just involved with Hindus or Muslims or Christians or Jewish people. It is a comprehensive discipline, I would say, which combines practice with theory. Yoga means actually whatever your intellectual concepts are, bring your experience to that level. That it is the example that I like to give is that, yeah, you can read a book about swimming in maybe an hour or so, but just reading that book doesn't automatically make you Michael Phelps. So it takes a lot of work. So yoga is that part that you have to properly tune your whole system, physical, mental, spiritual. The whole idea is to match it. So when it comes to the school systems, only that part which is commonly useful at that school level is to be adopted. That doesn't mean that other things are barred, but they are not part of the school system. Individuals can take it ahead and practice that. So yoga is it is open in the sense that to whatever level you want to climb, you can be there. It is not that everybody has to right from the beginning keep the sights at the topmost goal of yoga. Okay, and that also answers why there is so much of business that is made out of the exercises part of yoga, the Hatha Yoga part of yoga in America, giving it so many other popular dimensions or additions. Because most people, whether we actually like to accept it or not, we are glued to our physical existence. We identify ourselves with body, unfortunately, and therefore something that makes for our physical well-being, that gets accepted very quickly. So that is why automatically the physical level of yoga is more commonly acceptable, practicable for everyone. But when they come to that fulfillment of it, then they can look at the psychological aspects and how it helps the general well-being, because even if you are having a very good flawless physique, it may be that your mind not being calm, not being satisfied, you will still not be at peace or happy. So you will then move ahead. It is a path of evolution, I would say. So this science one can practice to a level that one is one wants to.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Carol, do you, in your teaching and practice, do you face this issue of religion being in conflict with yoga practices, meditation in your practice?
Some people do feel that way, but the actual practice of transcendental meditation is a very it's a very specific, definite technique, but it doesn't depend on your belief. So a person could be totally skeptical, and they can still meditate twice a day and experience deeper levels of the self and come out and use more of that potential in activity. So the results are automatic with TM. And when people feel that it's a conflict, it just has to be their own personal decision, I feel. But I grew up, and I still am, a Roman Catholic, and I don't feel it is a conflict at all. In fact, the inner the more self-awareness that I have, and more inner peace and calmness. I feel like spiritually I'm growing as I've been meditating for.
Of whatever denomination somebody is,
Yes.
you're still going to
There-
be better of that rather than
Yes.
as a result of your inner peace. And
It helps to increase one's faith in their own religion.
yeah.
And people of all different types of religions practice TM and get the benefits from it.
Thank you. Karen, you have many students who are regularly learning. Do you face this issue?
I do. I'm careful to respect my students' beliefs and their religions, and I am careful to not use deities and refer to the Hindu religion or make it any kind of religion at all. Actually, I prefer to talk about the yamas and the niyamas, which are the universal principles of the laws of nature, so that it's sort of just expansive for all people to feel comfortable and nobody feels threatened. There are some yoga teachers that will bring in Lakshmi or Ganesha, or they'll name deities, and the Catholics or the Jewish or whoever are in the audience might feel threatened by that, and that's where you can have some conflict. But there's no need to have to bring up that.
But you do, I think I saw your email said namaste at the end of it.
Yeah, so that's the light
Do
in
you
me
use
sees-
that?
I do. I feel that that's very innocuous. The light in me sees the light in you. I don't see how anyone of any religion would find that offensive.
Okay, so you make it very universal.
Yes.
Dr. Rathi, you mentioned that you work with HSS, which is Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, and this whole program that you are doing, and also you are a practicing scientist. You are neuroscientist at Harvard Medical School. So the two issues to you. One is, of course, Professor Sengupta also raised the issue of, and also Jerry raised the issue of scientific nature of it.
Right.
And which you can comment on later.
Sure.
But first, how do you see about this conflict between, I mean, there is a Hindu tradition that claims to have practices ancient times,
Right.
Yoga, which is now very universal. Hindu, I guess, the tradition itself is very universal.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, there are certain aspects of it which make people look like this is a very particular sect or panth or tradition that is using it. So how do you feel about it, this conflict?
I think practically there is no conflict as such, because the tradition is pretty scientific. The practices that you do are pretty universal. They are meant for your inner harmony and the harmony around us, and peace in the world. So as such, the origin of yoga happens to be in India, but that doesn't mean it has a very narrow religious structure to it. I feel that it supposedly is for everyone, and as everybody mentioned, it is for for us to spread that message also around, that it is for everyone, for everybody's well-being, and we'll be probably better off if we understand that.
But the divorcing from the yoga from Hindus is something that has to be done in different contexts, like teachers have to do this so that everybody feels comfortable.
Yeah.
But you don't, in your promotion of this, the Hindus obviously don't separate themselves, and there are certain practices like deity that Karen is mentioning. Is deity important for yoga?
I don't believe so. I think those are personal religious practices that one can perform while doing yoga. So somebody can worship Jesus or somebody can worship Krishna, but yet they could be following yoga. So I think it's a unifying part of our human culture, and so I don't think there is a conflict that
Beautiful.
exists.
Thank you. What do you think? How can we approach yoga? Yoga is a philosophy. It's sometimes bordering at the religion in some people's mind. But how do you said, you also said this is very scientific. How do you approach? I mean, scientific means, you can create some data, you can create some chart and graphs and numbers.
So I think there are a lot of studies that have started to see in a scientific, rational way, how does yoga affect us in actually in the body as well as in the mind. So there has been research at Mass General Hospital by a few researchers. We have seen that people who are traditional practitioners of meditation who have been practicing for some time now versus people who don't, they've seen that the gray matter is much thicker in their brains, and the gray matter typically degenerates or becomes thin with age. But what they've seen is that if you're practicing meditation, the rate at which it declines is really slow. And that shows direct benefit of meditation, for example. Another recent study was on the effect of that yoga has on the gut microbiome, for example, in the case of irritable bowel disease. It helps a lot. So there's innumerable places from which we are getting a lot of evidence to show that there is a huge amount of benefit personally to be gained by practicing yoga and meditation. And I think there is a lot to be done, but and we'll know much more as we keep on digging deeper as to what are the benefits.
Jerry, how you taught this class, Science of Kriya Yoga at UMass, which has large number of students taking this class. How do they view this issue of science and yoga, and maybe any conflict with the religion?
Yes, they view it as a group. I was interested to see how interested they were as a group in looking at different ways of looking at spirituality, looking at different ways of personal development. And personal development is one of those cross areas. Of course, personal development in America, you go to a psychology course. But in India, you go to a guru. But it's one of those cross areas where you really ask who you are. Who am I? Who am I? And that was a main part of the course, actually. You founded the course and you made it a main part of the course, that the student would reflect upon who they are. And they would use science, and they would use philosophy. And I was interested to see that the majority of students, the vast majority of students, were very interested in doing this. They found it fascinating, and in their final essays, they made that very clear, that this was. Now, one of the interesting parts to me about this whole issue and the question is, how is science viewed? How is science viewed? For that part, that gives a good illustration, I think, because to me, I have found the Hindu and Buddhist traditions to be welcoming of whatever research you do. You do scientific, you have a methodology, you have a sincere intent, you would like to know something, whether it's about yourself or about the world, the outside world, and it's all very open. It's all very, very open. So the Hindu and Buddhist tradition is to be welcoming of any kind of science that's a methodologically sound science. On the other hand, in America, there are all too many people, including scientists, but certainly people with very strong, rigid philosophies about what life is supposed to be, and how things must work. So they don't like science. And that's, to me, that's one of the measures of how open, how tolerant, how pluralistic your society is or can be. And that relates back to what Karen said earlier about the International Yoga Day having potential for increasing peace in the world. Well, how do you increase peace? Well, you get people to understand each other. And if we can't agree that there is a method called science that we support and all support, regardless of what the findings are, because the findings are based on fact. And if those facts conflict with your philosophy, what do? If that's a conflict for you, as it is in parts of America, then we get problems. Then we have difficulties.
Well, you said Americans actually do like science. I think they really love science and technology. And much of the science and technology has advanced in the world because of the United States leadership. But I think what I see here is the separation. There is a belief system and there is a science and technology. We like the science and technology part, but if it comes to our belief system, we want to keep it away, maybe to keep the peace. Professor Sengupta, I know we have worked together on this approach, how to approach science to philosophy, which is yoga is, and many of the belief systems also. How do you, methodologically as well as in terms of practical data observations and making sense of it, what do you think of how that can be approached?
Well, to just extend what Jerry said, we now, and what Dr. Rathi said, we now have many studies which are coalescing to give definitive, statistically valid results of that if you do this practice,